Emma was only 8 years old when the world around her changed forever. She was a quiet, gentle child who loved to read stories, draw little flowers on the corners of her notebook, and play in the garden with her mother. Her mother, Anna, was everything to her, her best friend, her comfort, and her safe place. They lived in a small house at the end of a calm street. It wasn't a big house, but it was full of warmth and laughter. Every morning, Emma would wake up to the soft sound of her mother humming while making breakfast. The smell of warm toast and fresh flowers filled the air, and everything felt perfect in its own little way. But sometimes, even the warmest homes can become cold very quickly. When Anna became sick, Emma didn't fully understand what was happening. She noticed that her mother was more tired than usual. She spent long hours resting on the couch, and the light in her eyes didn't shine as brightly as before. Emma would hold her hand and tell her stories about fairies and magical forests, hoping it would make her smile again. Anna always smiled at her, even when she was in pain. Emma thought her smile could fix everything. During those months, their home started to feel different. The walls that once echoed with laughter became quiet. The stepfather, Richard, didn't talk much to Emma anymore. He often stayed in his room or left the house for hours. When he was around, the air felt heavy. He wasn't mean to her, but he was distant. Emma could tell he didn't want to be part of her world the way her mother had been. But she held on to hope because she believed families were supposed to stay together, especially when someone was sick. The day the doctor came to the house, Emma sat on the floor with her teddy bear pressed tightly to her chest. She watched the adults speak in quiet voices, and although no one explained everything to her, she could feel it in her heart. Something was very wrong. Her mother reached out and touched her cheek, whispering, "Be brave, sweetheart." Those words stayed in Emma's mind like a soft echo. She couldn't forget. Then came the morning when everything stopped feeling normal. Emma woke up to a house that was too quiet. There was no humming in the kitchen, no warm smell of toast, no gentle voice calling her name. She tiptoed down the hallway, her little hands rubbing the sleep from her eyes. And then she saw Richard standing in the living room, not saying a word, his face unreadable. She looked around for her mother, but she wasn't there. That was the day Emma learned that her mother had passed. Away during the night, she didn't cry at first. She just stood there, not understanding what it really meant. She waited for her mother to walk through the door, to call her name again, but no one came. Slowly, the truth settled in her heart like a heavy stone. The house didn't feel like a home anymore. It felt like a place without light. The days that followed were a blur for Emma. People came and went. They brought flowers, spoke in gentle voices, and patted her on the shoulder. Some whispered words she didn't fully understand. Others simply stared at her with sad eyes. The living room was filled with the scent of flowers, but none of it felt comforting. She didn't want flowers. She just wanted her mother. Richard didn't talk much to her. He sat in a corner with his hands folded and eyes distant. When neighbors spoke to Emma, he walked away. She started to feel invisible in her own house. The warmth that her mother had created was gone, and nothing could fill that empty space. The day of the funeral arrived. The sky seemed to match Emma's heart, gray and heavy. She wore a simple black dress that felt too big on her small frame. Someone had tied her hair with a ribbon, but she didn't care about how she looked. All she wanted was one more hug from her mother. She held her teddy bear tightly in her arms, almost afraid that if she let go, everything would disappear completely. At the funeral, Emma stood near the front, her little hands gripping the edge of her dress. She listened to people speak about her mother, about how kind she was, how she always helped others, how her smile could brighten any day. Emma knew all of that already. She had lived it. But hearing it from strangers made her heart ache even more as the people slowly left. Emma stood quietly, looking at the flowers placed near the wooden casket. She whispered a soft goodbye, though she wasn't sure if her voice even came out. She thought about all the things she wished she had said, all the "I love you" moments she wanted to give one more time. When they returned home after the funeral, the house felt colder than ever. There was no one waiting to greet them. No warm light from the kitchen, no soft humming. Just silence Emma walked into her room and sat on the edge of her small bed, clutching her teddy bear. She looked at the photo of her and her mother on the bedside table, the one where they were smiling in the garden, covered in paint after a messy art project. Tears rolled down her cheeks, and for the first time since that morning, she cried, not loudly, but softly, like a broken whisper. She expected Richard to come and say something, anything. But instead, she heard footsteps in the hallway, then the sound of drawers opening and closing. When she peeked through the door, she saw Richard packing boxes. Not hers. His. He didn't look at her, didn't speak. It was as if she didn't exist. The next morning, everything happened so quickly. Emma sat at the kitchen table, her small feet not even touching the floor, waiting for breakfast. But Richard didn't make any. Instead, he placed a small bag in front of her. "This is your stuff," he said flatly, not meeting her eyes. Emma blinked, confused. "My stuff," she whispered. "You can't stay here," he said, his voice low but firm. "I can't take care of you." She stared at him, not fully understanding. "But this is my home," she said in a small voice. Her hands shook as she held her teddy bear even tighter. He didn't answer. He just walked away, leaving her sitting there with a bag and a heart full of questions. Emma didn't understand how someone could say those words after everything that had happened. She had nowhere else to go, no one else to turn to. A few minutes later, she found herself standing outside the house. The same house where she had played in the garden, where she had laughed with her mother, where she had felt safe. But now, she stood on the front steps with nothing but a small bag and a teddy bear. Richard didn't even look back as he closed the door. The wind brushed gently against her face, but it didn't feel gentle to her. It felt cold. She looked up at the sky, wondering why everything had to change so fast. She slowly walked down the street, her small shoes making soft sounds on the pavement. She didn't know where she was going. She only knew she couldn't stay there anymore. She passed by neighbors who looked at her with pity, but no one stopped her. She kept walking, holding the teddy bear close to her chest, like it was the last piece of warmth she had left. The sun began to set, painting the sky in soft shades of orange and pink, but Emma didn't notice the beauty. Her heart was too heavy. She sat on a wooden bench near a small park, looking at the children playing in the distance. Their laughter sounded like music from another world, a world she no longer belonged to. She thought about her mother's words again. "Be brave, sweetheart." She whispered those words to herself now, almost like a promise. She didn't know what would happen tomorrow. She didn't know who would help her or where she would sleep. But she tried to hold on to that small, shining thread of hope. As the night grew darker, Emma's eyes grew heavy with tiredness, but her heart refused to rest. She curled up on the bench, hugging her teddy bear tightly. She didn't cry anymore. The tears had run out. All that remained was a quiet, deep sadness. She didn't know that her life was about to change again. She didn't know that someone was watching from a distance, someone who had once known her mother and cared deeply about what happened to her little girl. She didn't know that a kind stranger was about to step into her story. But for now, all Emma could feel was the cool night air, the sound of her own heartbeat, and the memory of a home that vanished overnight. That night, Emma sat quietly on the wooden bench in the park, holding her teddy bear close to her chest. The soft wind moved through the trees, and the faint sound of crickets filled the silence. The sky above her sparkled with tiny stars, but she was too tired and too sad to notice their beauty. Her little legs dangled off the edge of the bench, and she rested her head on her knees. She didn't know how long she had been sitting there. She only knew her eyelids felt heavy and her heart even heavier. She remembered her mother's warm hands, her soft voice, her hugs that made everything feel better. She whispered to the stars, "Mama, where are you?" But the only answer was the quiet sound of the wind, not too far from the park. Mr. Anderson was driving home in his black car. He was a tall, calm man with kind eyes and a gentle voice. Many people in the town knew his name. He owned several businesses and was considered a very wealthy man. But he wasn't proud or distant. He often helped people quietly, without expecting anything in return. Earlier that day, he had attended Anna's funeral. Anna had worked for him for many years. She wasn't just an employee. She had been someone he respected deeply. She was hardworking, kind, and full of hope. He had often seen little Emma running into her mother's arms after school. Anna used to talk about her daughter with so much love. When Mr. Anderson left the funeral, something about the way Emma stood there alone stayed in his mind. He had seen her small figure by the flowers, holding a teddy bear tightly, like it was the only thing left that loved her back. There was something in her eyes that he couldn't forget, the quiet pain of a child who had lost everything. He was driving past the park when he noticed a small figure on a bench. At first he thought it was just someone waiting for a parent, but as he drove closer, he recognized the little girl. It was Emma. She was still wearing the black dress from the funeral, and her hair ribbon had loosened. She looked so small against the dark night sky. Mr. Anderson slowed down and parked his car near the park. For a moment, he simply watched her from a distance, making sure it really was her. Then he stepped out quietly and walked toward the bench. "Emma," he said softly, not wanting to scare her. Emma lifted her head slowly. When she saw his familiar face, she blinked, unsure if she was dreaming. She remembered him from the funeral. He had been standing near the front, watching quietly. "Mr. Anderson?" she whispered, her voice small and tired. "Yes, sweetheart," he said gently. "What are you doing here all alone at this hour?" She looked down at her shoes. Her small fingers tightened around the teddy bear. She didn't know how to explain what had happened. She didn't want to say that she had nowhere to go. But her silence said more than words ever could. Mr. Anderson slowly sat down on the bench next to her, leaving a kind space between them. "It's late," he said softly. "You should be home, Emma." She shook her head slowly. "I don't have a home anymore," she whispered. His heart tightened at her words. He didn't push her to say more. Instead, he placed his hand gently on the bench, close to hers, but not touching, giving her space to speak when she was ready. "Would you like to tell me what happened?" he asked in a gentle tone. Tears filled her eyes, but she wiped them quickly with the back of her hand. In a soft, shaky voice, she told him everything, how the house felt empty after her mother passed away, how Richard didn't talk to her anymore, how he gave her a small bag and told her to leave. She spoke slowly, stopping sometimes to breathe, and Mr. Anderson listened carefully, never interrupting. When she finished, she whispered, "I didn't know where to go, so I just walked. I thought maybe Mama would find me if I stayed outside." Mr. Anderson's eyes softened. He took a slow breath. "Emma," he said gently, "your mother was a very special woman, and I can promise you something, she would never want you to be alone. Not tonight, not ever." Emma's lower lip trembled. She hugged the teddy bear tightly. He stood up slowly and held out his hand toward her. "Come with me," he said kindly. "You need a warm place to stay, and I think your mama would want me to help you." Emma looked at his hand. She hesitated for a moment. Trust was not easy when the world had just fallen apart. But there was something in Mr. Anderson's eyes, something steady, warm, and safe. It reminded her a little of the way her mother used to look at her. She slowly reached out and placed her small hand in his. "Good girl," he said softly, giving her a reassuring smile. "Let's get you home." He opened the car door for her and helped her in gently, making sure she felt safe. She sat in the seat with her teddy bear on her lap, looking out the window as the car moved through the quiet streets. For the first time since her mother's passing, she felt a tiny spark of warmth inside her heart. It wasn't happiness, not yet, but it was hope. When they arrived at Mr. Anderson's house, Emma's eyes widened. It wasn't like her small house. It was big and bright, with warm lights glowing from the windows and a garden filled with soft flowers. But what she noticed most wasn't how grand it looked. It was how warm it felt inside. A kind woman opened the door when they arrived. "Good evening, Mr. Anderson," she said politely. Then her eyes softened when she saw Emma. "Oh, hello there. This is Emma," Mr. Anderson explained gently. "She'll be staying with us tonight." The woman smiled warmly at Emma. "Welcome, sweetheart. Come in, you must be cold." Emma followed them inside slowly. The house smelled like cinnamon and fresh bread. There was a fireplace in the living room, and its soft light made everything feel cozy. Mr. Anderson led her to a comfortable chair near the fire. "Are you hungry?" he asked. She shook her head shyly. "That's okay," he said kindly. "You can eat later if you feel like it. For now, you just rest." The kind woman brought her a soft blanket and wrapped it around her shoulders. Emma felt the warmth sink into her tired body. She sat there quietly, listening to the soft, crackling sound of the fire. For the first time in many nights, she didn't feel invisible. Someone saw her. Someone cared. Mr. Anderson sat down across from her. He didn't ask too many questions. He didn't make big promises. He simply sat there, like a quiet guardian, letting her know she was safe. "Emma," he said after a while, "I knew your mother very well. She was one of the strongest people I've ever met. She loved you more than anything. She used to talk about you all the time. She was so proud of you." Emma's eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were different. They weren't just from sadness. They were from feeling seen. "Do you think she's watching me?" Emma asked softly. Mr. Anderson smiled gently. "I think she's with you in every step you take. She loved you too much to ever really leave." That night, Emma slept in a warm guest room with a soft bed. She placed her teddy bear next to her pillow and whispered to it, "Maybe everything will be okay." It's for the first time in a long time. She fell asleep without feeling afraid. The next day slowly began to change. Emma's life. Mr. Anderson didn't just give her a place to stay, he gave her a place to belong. He spoke to the right people, made arrangements, and started the process to become her legal guardian. But more than paperwork, gave her something much more important: kindness. He would sit with her in the garden and listen to her talk about her mother. He helped her enroll in a new school where the teachers were kind and the students friendly. He made sure she had warm clothes, good food, and a room that felt like hers. But he never tried to replace her mother. He let her keep her memories, her stories, her love. Emma slowly learned to smile again. It wasn't easy. Grief didn't disappear overnight. Some days, she missed her mother so much that she would sit by the window and hug her teddy bear for hours. But on those days, Mr. Anderson would quietly sit nearby, not pushing her to talk, just letting her know she wasn't alone. One sunny afternoon, Emma stood in the garden, looking at the flowers swaying in the breeze. Mr. Anderson walked up behind her. "Your mama loved flowers," he said softly. Emma nodded. "She used to plant daisies with me," she whispered. "Would you like to plant some here too?" he asked gently. Her face brightened a little. "Can I?" "Of course," he said with a smile. "This is your home too now." They spent the afternoon planting white daisies together. Emma's hands got a little dirty, and she laughed for the first time in weeks, a soft, shy laugh that made Mr. Anderson's heart warm. As time passed, Emma's heart slowly healed. She began to build new memories, not to erase the old ones, but to carry them alongside new ones. She joined a reading club at school, made friends who liked drawing like she did, and learned how to ride a bicycle in the park near Mr. Anderson's house. Every night before bed, she whispered to her teddy bear, "Mama, I'm okay. I have someone looking out for me." Mr. Anderson never saw himself as a hero. He didn't step into Emma's life to be praised. He did it because kindness was something he believed in deeply. And Emma, who once sat on a bench alone, now had a future filled with warmth and hope. One evening, years later, Emma sat in that same garden, now full of flowers she had planted herself. She looked at the sky, remembering the little girl she used to be. She thought about the night when everything changed. She remembered the bench, the stars, the cold wind, and the soft voice that said, "Come with me." Tears filled her eyes again, but they weren't sad tears. They were grateful ones. Sometimes life takes everything away in one moment, but sometimes it also gives back in the most unexpected ways.